My parents cut me from the luxury trip I paid for, picked my jobless sister, so I canceled everything, and taught them a lesson they'll never forget. My sister Carmen went through a messy divorce that left her an emotional wreck. When I say messy, I mean a full-on disaster. Arguments about money, her ex trying to keep the dog, and late-night crying sessions that woke up half the neighborhood. It wasn't pretty. Carmen fell apart, and my parents and I had to pick up the pieces. My mom, Anna, was running around doing everything for her, helping her move out, dealing with lawyers, even cooking some nights because Carmen was too fragile. My dad, Javier, tried to play it cool, but you could tell the whole thing was wearing him down. He started looking 10 years older in just a few months. As for me, I was doing whatever I could to help, even though I had my own life to manage. I have a full-time job and my own bills to cover, but I often stepped in to help Carmen with things like her groceries when she was short on cash, which happened a lot. I even handed over my old car to her after hers gave out, since she was too overwhelmed to deal with buying a new one. We all pitched in to support her because, well, that's just what family does, isn't it? My mom always talked about wanting to visit Barcelona to see the Sagrada Familia. She's obsessed with architecture, and it's been her dream for as long as I can remember. My dad's more of a foodie, so I figured he'd love the tapas and paella. Plus, Spain has a bit of everything. Beaches, history, culture. It felt perfect. I went all out. I spent hours researching the best flights, hotels, and tours. I made sure we'd have time to relax, with plenty of free days to explore, or just enjoy each other's company. The whole thing cost more than I'm comfortable admitting, but I didn't care. It wasn't about the money, it was about creating memories with my parents. I pictured us wandering through cobblestone streets, eating churros dipped in chocolate. The day of the trip finally came. I woke up early to pick them up and drive them to the airport. I was so excited I barely slept the night before. I pulled into their driveway right on time, or so I thought. As soon as my mom stepped onto the porch, she said, "You're late." I glanced at the clock on my dashboard. It was 7 minutes past 3 in the morning. "Mom, 3 minutes late." I tried to laugh it off, but she gave me that look. I got out of the car to help with their luggage. My dad came out with his suitcase and I was about to grab it when the door opened again. That's when I saw Carmen dragging her own suitcase behind her. I stopped in my tracks. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice already tight. My mom looked at me, smiling too brightly. "Oh, Valeria, we decided Carmen should come instead of you. She's been through so much lately, and she really needs this trip. Instead of me." My heart was racing, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "Mom, I've been planning this for so long. I paid for everything." She waved me off like I'd said something ridiculous. "And we're so grateful, sweetheart, but you work so hard. You can take another trip later. Carmen needs this right now." Carmen didn't even look guilty. She smirked and said, "Thanks for understanding, Val. This means a lot to me." I turned to my dad, hoping he'd back me up, but he avoided my eyes and handed me his suitcase like it was no big deal. This couldn't be real. But what could I say? I wasn't about to throw a tantrum in the driveway. So I swallowed my anger, clenched my jaw, and forced a tight smile. "Let's get going then," I said, my voice flat. The car ride to the airport was weird. It wasn't just the awkward silence. It was the heaviness in the air, like everyone knew something was off, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. Well, not everyone. Carmen clearly had no clue. She was sitting in the back seat chatting away like this was the greatest day of her life. "Oh my gosh, Mom," she said, leaning forward. "Did you see that thing on TikTok about the shopping streets in Madrid? I have to go. And do you think we'll have time for a day trip to Toledo?" I read it's like so cute and historical or whatever. I didn't glance at the rearview mirror. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my fingers started cramping. How was she so casual about this? Did she really not get how messed up it was that she was here instead of me? Mom just chuckled like everything was fine. "Don't worry, Carmen, we'll have time for everything. And even if we don't, we'll be back someday, right, Javier?" My dad, sitting quietly in the passenger seat, gave a half-hearted like he didn't want to be involved. Smart move, but also infuriating. He hadn't said one word to me since we left the house. It was like he couldn't even look at me. I couldn't keep quiet any longer. "So, just to be clear," I said, my voice flat, "this is officially her trip now?" The car went quiet for a second. Then Carmen, oblivious as always, said, "Don't be so dramatic, Val. I mean, you'll get your turn eventually, right?" Eventually. My grip on the wheel tightened and I forced myself to take a deep breath before I snapped. "Sure, Carmen. Whenever eventually happens, let me know." Mom turned to me, all fake sweetness. "Valeria, please don't ruin this for Carmen. She's had such a tough year. You know how hard the divorce was for her." There it was, the reason, the excuse for everything they'd done this past year, Carmen's divorce. It was like a golden ticket she could flash whenever she wanted something. Need groceries but don't feel like paying? Flash the divorce card. Don't want to deal with life's responsibilities? Divorce card. Now, it was the "let's steal Valeria's trip to Spain" card. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard it hurt, but I didn't say anything else. What was the point? They'd already made up their minds. They always had. Carmen needed this. Carmen deserved that. It had been the same story for as long as I could remember. If you asked them, I was the strong one, the one who could handle anything. Carmen was the fragile one, who needed protection. Protected from what? I never figured that part out. I kept my mouth shut for the rest of the drive, even though Carmen couldn't stop talking. She went on about all the things she wanted to do in Spain, throwing out random facts she must have Googled 5 minutes before leaving the house. Oh, and Mom, did you know the Sagrada Familia is still under construction? Isn't that wild? Like, what have they been doing all these years? Mom humored her with a polite, "Oh wow," but I could tell she wasn't paying attention. I wasn't either. I was too busy staring at the road, wishing I could turn the car around and go home, or better yet, drop them off and leave them stranded on the curb. But no, I couldn't do that. I'm the responsible one. The closer we got to the airport, the heavier the silence from the front seat became. My dad didn't say a word, which wasn't like him. Usually he'd crack a dumb joke to lighten the mood or try to smooth things over. Not this time. He just sat there, fiddling with his phone like it was the most interesting thing in the world. I could feel the tension rolling off him, but he didn't do anything to fix it. I guess he figured it was easier to keep quiet and let Mom handle things. Typical. When we pulled up to the drop-off zone, I parked and got out to help with their bags. Carmen hopped out first, practically skipping as she grabbed her suitcase from the trunk. Mom followed, thanking me for driving them like she hadn't just kicked me off my own trip. Dad still avoided eye contact as he handed me a suitcase, muttering something like, "Thanks, Valeria," under his breath. Mom came over and gave me a hug, which I barely returned. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart," she said. "This means a lot to us." "Sure, Mom," I said, my voice monotone. I didn't even try to hide how pissed I was. Why bother? They didn't care how I felt, so why should I? Carmen, of course, had to get in one last jab. "Thanks, Val, you're the best," she called, grinning like this was all a big joke. I stood on the curb, watching them disappear into the terminal. I waited until they were out of sight before getting back in the car, gripping the steering wheel and staring straight ahead. My chest felt tight, and my stomach was in knots. This wasn't just about the trip. It was about everything. All the times I'd put their needs ahead of my own and gotten nothing in return. This trip was supposed to be my way of bringing us closer, of showing them how much I appreciated everything they'd done. And what did I get? A slap in the face. The drive home was a blur. I couldn't stop replaying the whole thing in my head. Carmen's smirk, Mom's dismissive tone, Dad's silence. It felt so unfair. By the time I pulled into my driveway, anger had taken over. I sat in the car for a few minutes, gripping the wheel so hard my fingers ached. Then I got out, slammed the door, and marched into the house. I didn't even take off my shoes. When I sat down, my hands were shaking, not from nerves or sadness, but from fury. The kind of anger where you feel it bubbling in your chest and pounding in your head, and you know if you don't do something, you'll explode. I opened my laptop and stared at the screen. The itinerary for the trip was right there in my inbox, taunting me like a cruel joke. Flights, hotels, tours, everything meticulously planned and paid for by me, for a trip I wasn't even invited on anymore. I clicked on the hotel confirmation first. The boutique hotel in Madrid was charming and intimate, with amazing reviews about the service and location, a place where we could relax after long days of sightseeing. Well, apparently, that was just for Carmen now. "Not anymore," I muttered. It took 3 clicks to cancel the reservation. I didn't hesitate. The moment I hit cancel booking and saw the confirmation email pop up, I felt a small sense of satisfaction. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Next was the villa in Seville. This one stung more because I'd splurged on it. It had a private pool, a huge terrace, and was right near the old town. Probably the nicest place I'd ever booked. I'd been so excited about it. I could picture us sitting by the pool, laughing, sharing stories, finally feeling like a family again after everything we'd been through. Except now, it would have been Carmen sipping iced tea and living her best life. "Yeah, no," I said, shaking my head. "Cancel." The email popped up instantly. Another one down. The tours were next. I'd booked 2 private tours because I wanted us to have a personal experience, to connect with the places we were visiting without being stuck in a big tourist group. Now, they could wander aimlessly for all I cared. Cancel. Refund. Done. I sat back for a second, letting the cancellations sink in. It felt good, really good. Not just because I was getting my money back, though that was a bonus, but because I was taking control of something that had been ripped away from me. Then I remembered the flights. I pulled up the airline's website and logged into my account. The flights were the most expensive part. especially since I'd upgraded us to business class as a treat for my parents after all their stress. But the thought of Carmen reclining in a comfy seat, sipping orange juice, made my blood boil. I couldn't cancel their flights entirely, they'd already checked in. But I could downgrade them to economy, so I did. I clicked through the options, feeling a twinge of guilt for half a second. Then I remembered Carmen's smug "thanks for understanding, Val," and the guilt evaporated. Downgrade, confirm, done. I leaned back, staring at the screen. One last thing, the return flight. I clicked on the details, my finger hovering over the cancel button. I hesitated. Was this too far? Would they be stranded in Spain, helpless? Then I remembered who I was dealing with. My parents weren't helpless. They'd figure it out, just like they'd figured out how to replace me. Good luck with this one, Carmen, I muttered, and hit the button. Cancel, confirm, done. The email popped up, and I stared at it for a long time. I felt lighter, like some of the weight crushing me all day had lifted. I closed my laptop, stood up, and stretched. My chest didn't feel so tight anymore, but the anger wasn't gone, not yet. I grabbed a glass of water and sipped it slowly, thinking about what I'd done. Part of me felt guilty, like maybe I'd gone too far. But then I remembered why I'd done it. I didn't go too far. If anything, I'd done exactly what I needed to do. By the time I finished my water, I felt calmer. I checked the cancellations to make sure everything was in order. They were still going to Spain, but they wouldn't have the luxury vacation I'd planned. They'd have to figure it out on their own. And honestly, that felt like justice. I grabbed a book from my nightstand. I wasn't in the mood to read, but I needed a distraction from the day. As I flipped through pages without reading them, I felt a strange satisfaction. For once, I hadn't rolled over and let them walk all over me. I'd stood up for myself, even if it was quietly behind the scenes. They might not know it yet, but they were about to learn a very important lesson. You don't mess with someone who's been holding everything together for you. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd done something for myself, and that, I realized, was worth more than any trip to Spain. The calls started before I finished unpacking my suitcase. I was in my room, putting away clothes I'd packed for a trip I wasn't taking, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I ignored it at first. Then it buzzed again and again. I sighed, picking it up to see a barrage of notifications, missed calls, voicemails, texts. All from my mom, naturally. I scrolled through the messages, each one more frantic than the last. "Anna, Valeria, we can't check into the hotel. They don't have our reservation. Call me right away. Anna, this isn't funny. Fix this now. Anna, what's going on?" "The front desk says we have no tours booked either." I smirked. They were starting to figure it out. I put the phone down and went back to unpacking. It was almost funny how quickly they'd gone from "thank you, Val, you're the best to fix this now." What did they think would happen? That I'd fund their dream vacation after they decided I wasn't good enough to join? The buzzing continued as I hung dresses in the closet and placed shoes on the shelf, like a mosquito that wouldn't leave me alone. By the time I finished unpacking, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and answered the next call. "Valeria," Mom's voice came through, loud and sharp, like she'd been waiting for hours. "What did you do?" "The hotel says the reservation was canceled, and none of the tours are booked anymore." "I canceled them," I said, deadpan. There was a long pause. I could picture her in the hotel lobby, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Why would you do that?" she hissed. "Oh, I don't know," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Maybe because you decided to cut me out? You're lucky I even drove you to the airport. We thought you'd understand," she said, her tone shifting to something like guilt. "Carmen needed this, and I didn't," I snapped. "I've been helping you support her all year. I've paid for everything, and when I finally do something for myself, you kick me out of it." "No, Mom, I don't understand." Her voice sharpened. "Valeria, we don't do this to each other." "Funny," I said. "I was just thinking the same thing." Before she could respond, Carmen's voice came through in the background. "Mom, just hang up on her. She's being ridiculous. That was the last straw." "You know what?" I said, my tone icy. "You wanted Carmen on this trip so badly, so now you can enjoy it with her. Don't call me again to fix your mess. Goodbye." I hung up and turned off my phone. The silence was blissful. The next morning, I turned my phone back on out of curiosity. Predictably, there were more texts and voicemails. The first ones from Mom were angry. "Anna, this is childish, Valeria. You've humiliated us. We don't deserve this." Then they shifted. "Anna, please, just fix this. We're your parents." Dad even chimed in, which surprised me. He usually stayed out of stuff like this. "Javier, Valeria, this isn't like you. Let's talk." And, of course, Carmen had to add her 2 cents.
"Carmen, just fix it already."
I rolled my eyes and set the phone down. If they thought guilt-tripping me would work, they didn't know me as well as they thought. By the third day, their frustration must have hit a boiling point because the texts got more dramatic. Anna, Valeria, you need to call me back right now. The hotel we found is awful, and the tours we tried to book are all sold out. Carmen, thanks for nothing, Val. I wasn't sure if I should laugh or feel annoyed. They were really struggling to handle this on their own. It almost felt satisfying to see how quickly things fell apart without me to pick up the pieces. Eventually, I got curious and answered when Dad called. Valeria, he started, his tone heavier. Your mom wanted me to talk to you. Of course she did, I said. She's probably still mad I didn't fix everything for her. He sighed. Look, this has gotten out of hand. Your mom's upset, Carmen's furious, and this whole trip is, well, it's a mess. Sounds about right, I said, not hiding my satisfaction. But you're better than this, he continued, like he thought flattery would make me fold. You've always been the reasonable one, the one who keeps everything together. That struck a nerve. You're right, I said. I am the one who keeps everything together, and I'm tired of it. Valeria, this isn't just about the trip, he said, trying to sound calm. Family, we should work through this together. Family? I said, my voice rising. Is that what we're calling this? Because to me, it feels like I'm just the backup plan whenever Carmen screws up. There was silence on the other end. Finally, he said, I don't know what you want me to say. I don't need you to say anything, I replied. I need you to understand that I'm done. You made your choice when you decided I wasn't important enough to be part of this trip. Now you can live with it. I hung up before he could respond and turned my phone off again. By the time I turned it back on, the silence had been blissful, but I had a nagging feeling they hadn't let it go. Sure enough, as soon as my phone powered up, notifications poured in like a floodgate had burst. It was impressive how many emotions they packed into their frantic texts.
Anna, Valeria, this is getting out of hand. We need to talk.
Carmen, seriously, Val, you're so petty for this. Mom is losing her mind and it's your fault. Anna, the second hotel we found is awful. We can't even figure out the air conditioning, and it's so loud here. How could you do this to us? I opened a voicemail from Mom because I figured it'd be entertaining. Her voice came through, sharp and angry at first. Valeria, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is unacceptable. We are stranded here trying to salvage this trip, and you've made it impossible. Carmen is devastated, and your father and I... She paused, her tone softening, probably hoping to guilt me. We're so disappointed in you. This isn't who you are. Call me back so we can sort this out. I laughed out loud. This isn't who you are. The irony hit like a brick. Who I was, apparently, was the one who always put them first, who made sure things ran smoothly no matter how much it cost me, financially, emotionally, or otherwise. Well, not anymore. Over the next couple of days, the texts kept coming, but they started to shift. Instead of just angry rants, there were hints of desperation. Javier, we just want to understand why you're so angry. That one almost made me laugh. Why was I so angry? Really, after everything they'd done, they still didn't get it. But I wasn't going to explain it again. They could figure it out on their own. Meanwhile, I enjoyed the peace and quiet without their constant demands. I finally had time to focus on myself. Of course, the peace didn't last. On the fourth day, Mom called again, and for some reason I answered. Maybe I was bored, or maybe I wanted to see what excuse she'd come up with. Valeria, she barked as soon as I picked up. This isn't funny anymore. We are struggling here. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? We're in this horrible hotel, and we don't know how to get anywhere because the tours you canceled were supposed to include transportation. So you're mad because you actually have to plan things for yourselves? I asked, my tone deadpan. You're acting like a child, she snapped. And you're acting like I owe you something, I shot back. Guess what, Mom? I don't. That was it for me. Enjoy the trip, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh wait, you can't because you're completely unprepared. Not my problem. Goodbye. If they wanted to act like I didn't matter, they could figure out how to survive Spain without me. By the time their flight back home was due, I'd settled into a quiet, stress-free routine. My phone stayed off most of the time, and I only turned it on to check for important things. Work, friends, bills. The endless stream of texts and voicemails from my parents and Carmen didn't qualify, so I ignored them. I'd gotten used to the silence. It was peaceful. But the day their flight was scheduled to land, I figured they'd come straight to me. I wasn't going to hide. If they wanted to throw tantrums in person, they were welcome to try. Sure enough, about an hour after their plane touched down, a taxi pulled into their driveway. I saw them climbing out, dragging their bags. I was already there, parked in their driveway, sipping coffee on their porch swing like I didn't have a care in the world. They spotted me as they got out of the car. Mom looked exhausted but still managed to look annoyed. Dad just looked like he wanted to disappear. Carmen was the first to speak. Well, I hope you're happy, Val. You completely ruined the trip. I raised an eyebrow but didn't bother standing up. Did I? Or did you ruin it when you decided to kick me off the guest list? Mom's jaw tightened, and she threw up her hands like this was my fault. You know what you did, Valeria? Canceling everything? That was spiteful and childish. We couldn't even find decent hotels after that, let alone tours. It was a nightmare. Oh no, I said, feigning concern as I took another sip of coffee. A nightmare, you say? What happened? Did Carmen not get her Instagram-worthy photos? Carmen groaned. You're so petty. It's not about Instagram, isn't it though? I shot back. Because from where I'm sitting, it sure looked like this trip was all about you. Dad stepped in, his voice quieter but firm. Valeria, you didn't have to cancel everything. You could have just, I don't know, let it go and come on the next trip. That got me to my feet. I put my mug down on the table beside the swing and folded my arms. The next trip? Really? You think I'm going to brush this off and plan another trip for the three of us? Or is Carmen going to magically need that one more than me too? I continued, my voice steady. You always think Carmen needs more attention, more support, more help, and I'm always the one who has to sacrifice so she can have it, not this time. Carmen crossed her arms and scoffed. Wow, Val, get over yourself. You're acting like this trip was some huge gift when really it's just money. You'll make more. I stared at her, my jaw tightening. Do you even hear yourself? Do you know how much work and sacrifice went into planning that trip? How many things I gave up to make it special for Mom and Dad, and you just waltz in at the last minute and take it like it's owed to you. You're unbelievable. We didn't mean to make you feel like that, Dad said, but his voice was weak. But you did, I said, holding his gaze. And now you're upset because I didn't just roll over and take it. You're mad because I finally said enough is enough. Mom's face softened a little, and for a second I thought she might apologize. But then she said, we just thought you'd understand, Valeria. You're so strong, and Carmen isn't. I finished for her. Yeah, I got the memo. I've been hearing it my whole life. Guess what, Mom? Being strong doesn't mean I don't have feelings, and it doesn't mean I'm okay with being treated like I don't matter. There was silence for a moment. I could see the wheels turning in Mom's head. Carmen looked like she wanted to say something snarky, but for once, she kept her mouth shut. Finally, Dad broke the silence. We're sorry, Valeria. We didn't think about how much this would hurt you. I raised an eyebrow. No, you didn't, and that's the problem. You never think about me. You just assume I'll keep holding everything together while you focus on Carmen. Well, not anymore. From now on, I'm putting myself first. Mom's lips tightened, but she didn't argue. I could tell she wanted to, but she didn't have a leg to stand on. Good, I said, picking up my bag from the swing. I'm glad you're back safe, but don't expect things to go back to the way they were. I'm done being your doormat. I walked to my car, ignoring their calls to stop. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Mom looked stunned, Dad looked defeated, and Carmen just looked pissed. A few weeks after the blow-up, I booked a solo trip to Spain. The idea came while scrolling through Instagram one night. Ironically, Carmen had posted some half-decent pictures from their trip, grainy selfies in front of the Sagrada Familia, an awkward group photo by the Alhambra. It looked like they'd patched together something resembling a vacation after I canceled everything, but it was nowhere near what I'd planned. That thought didn't fill me with guilt. It made me realize I didn't need to tie my happiness to theirs anymore. Why should I miss out on Spain just because they ruined my first plan? I had the money back from the canceled bookings, and going on my own started to feel freeing. No schedules to accommodate, no family drama, no compromises, just me doing what I wanted, when I wanted. When I flew back home, I felt lighter. My parents had texted a couple of times while I was gone, and I'd skimmed their messages. Mom was trying to sound apologetic, but it still had that guilt trip undertone she was so good at. Anna, hope you're enjoying your trip. Maybe we can talk when you get back. I didn't reply right away. I wanted to, but on my terms. I'd made that mistake too many times, rushing to smooth things over just to keep the peace. Not this time. A couple of weeks after I got back, I was feeling good about how things were going. I had my life back in my hands, my boundaries were solid, and I'd made peace with not sacrificing for my family anymore. But of course, that peace didn't last. My parents and Carmen couldn't leave well enough alone. It started with calls. At first, it was just occasional checking in messages. Mom would leave a voicemail like, "Hi Valeria, just wanted to see how you're doing. Give us a call when you can." Nice enough on the surface, but I could sense the underlying tension. I ignored all of it, every text, every voicemail, every guilt trip. I wasn't ready for another argument, or worse, to pretend everything was fine just to keep the peace. Then came the favors. It started with a message from Mom. "Anna, Valeria, your dad's car broke down and we're struggling to figure out how to cover the repairs. I know you're good with budgeting, can you help us out?" I stared at the text, feeling the familiar pressure creeping in. For years, I'd been the one to help whenever something went wrong. Household expenses, financial messes, you name it. I'd always been the fallback. Not this time. I replied, sorry to hear that. Maybe Carmen can pitch in. No response. A week later, Mom called again. This time I answered just to see what they wanted. Valeria, she started, her voice full of that fake sweetness she used when trying to butter me up. How are you, sweetheart? We haven't heard from you in so long. I'm fine, Mom, I said, keeping my tone flat. Good, good, she said quickly. Listen, your dad and I were wondering if you could come over this weekend. The gutters need cleaning, and Javier's back has been bothering him lately. You're so good at that kind of thing. I almost laughed out loud. Now they wanted me to clean their gutters? I can't, I said. There was a pause. Why not? She asked, her tone sharpening. Because it's not my responsibility, I replied. Hire someone if you need help. She sputtered, caught off guard. That's not fair, Valeria. We've apologized already. No, you haven't, I said, cutting her off. You've made excuses. You've tried to guilt me into forgiving you, but you've never actually apologized. And even if you did, it wouldn't change the fact that I'm done being your backup. Valeria, She started, but I cut her off again. I have to go, I said, and hung up before she could argue. The final straw came a few weeks later when Carmen sent me a text. Carmen, hey Val, I need a huge favor. My rent's due and I'm short this month. Can you spot me $500? I'll pay you back ASAP. I stared at the message for a full minute, feeling the familiar anger rise. After everything, she still had the nerve to ask me for money like nothing had happened. I typed a quick reply and sent it before I could second-guess myself. Me, no. Her response came almost immediately. Carmen, seriously? After everything I've been through, you can't help me out? Wow, you're unbelievable. That was it. I was done. No more explanations, no more arguments, no more giving them the benefit of the doubt. The next morning, I sat down and wrote an email to my parents. It was simple and to the point. Hi, Mom and Dad. I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, and I've come to a decision. I need to step back from this family dynamic for my own well-being. For years, I've been the one to hold everything together, to sacrifice my own needs for the sake of keeping the peace. But I can't do it anymore. I need space to focus on myself and build the life I want, free from the constant pressure to fix everyone else's problems. This isn't a decision I've made lightly, but it's one I feel is necessary. I hope you'll respect my boundaries moving forward. Valeria, I hit send and blocked their numbers. In the weeks that followed, there were a few attempts to reach me. Emails from Dad, Facebook messages from Mom, even a friend of theirs reaching out on their behalf. I ignored all of it. It was hard at first, but as time went on, I realized how much lighter I felt without their constant demands and guilt. Weighing me down for the first time in years, I was free to focus on myself without feeling like I owed anyone anything. Cutting ties wasn't easy, but it was the right decision. Some might say I went too far, but I don't regret a thing. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away, and that's exactly what I did. My parents used me my whole life, then tried to dump my sister's $43,000 debt on me. But what I exposed next shattered everything they built. I'm Theo, a 30-year-old male, and if you ask anyone who knows me, they'll tell you I've been on my own since I was 18. I paid for my own college, worked my butt off, and never asked my parents for help. But apparently that doesn't mean I get to live my life in peace. Nope, it just means I'm the family problem solver by default. It all started when my mom called me out of nowhere. Now, my mom, Lorraine, doesn't call for a chat. She's not the kind of mom who calls to ask how your day is or what you had for lunch. If she calls, it's because something's wrong, and she needs me to fix it. So, when her name popped up, I already knew this wasn't going to be good. I answered, and she jumped straight into awkward small talk, which isn't her thing at all. Hey Theo, how's work? Still doing finance stuff? She asked, like she hasn't ignored my job description for the last decade. I played along because I was curious. Yeah, Mom, still doing finance. What's up? That's when she dropped it. Your sister is in trouble. Now, I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. My sister, Savannah, a 27-year-old female, has a long history of creating chaos and expecting everyone else to clean it up. Over the years, her messes haven't just been minor inconveniences. They've been full-blown disasters that always seem to land on my shoulders. Take the time she borrowed my car without asking, only to crash it while texting. She called me in a panic, sobbing about how she didn't know what to do, and like an idiot, I dropped everything to help her out. I dealt with the insurance, paid the deductible, and even let her off the hook for the damage she caused because she swore she'd never do anything like that again. But she did. Or the time she convinced me to co-sign for her first apartment because she just needed a little help to get started. 3 months later, she stopped paying rent, ghosted the landlord, and left me with the fallout. I spent months fighting to fix my credit while she conveniently moved back in with our parents, acting like it wasn't a big deal. It's not just that she screws up, it's that she never faces the consequences. Every time she messes up, someone, usually me, has to step in to fix it while she plays the victim. And the worst part? She doesn't even show a hint of gratitude. It's like she thinks the world owes her a safety net. So, when my mom called me about Savannah being in trouble, I didn't feel panic or concern. I felt tired of being dragged into her messes, tired of being the one who always pays the price for her recklessness. Honestly, I was more surprised it had taken this long for something big to happen. I sighed, already dreading what I was about to hear. "What kind of trouble?" I asked. I wasn't asking because I wanted to help. I was asking because I wanted to know just how bad this one was going to be. Then she hit me with it. Savannah had racked up $43,500 in debt. $40,000. I had to repeat it in my head just to process it. How does someone even get to that point? Apparently, she'd been spending money she didn't have. Again. But this time, it wasn't just credit card companies she owed. She'd borrowed money from some shady people. The kind you don't just ignore when the bills pile up. And now, they were coming after her. And my mom's brilliant solution to this mess? Me, obviously. Because why wouldn't it be? In her mind, I was the one with a steady job, the responsible sibling, the guy who could always be counted on to fix the unfixable. It didn't matter that Savannah screwed up. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that I wasn't rushing in to save her. "You need to help her," she said, like my role as the family ATM had already been decided. I sat there for a second, letting it sink in. I asked, "Help how exactly? You've done so well for yourself, Theo. You can pay it off for her," she said, as casually as if she were asking me to swing by and grab takeout. I actually let out a short laugh, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I didn't borrow that money. Why should this be my responsibility? I'm not paying anything." The silence that followed was heavy, like she was processing the fact that I had just outright refused. Then she snapped, launching straight into full-blown guilt mode. "She's your sister. Family helps each other. Do you want her to get hurt? Is that what you want?" Her words came fast, almost frantic, like she couldn't believe I wasn't immediately jumping in to save Savannah. It wasn't a request, it was an accusation, as if my refusal was the real problem here, not the choices Savannah had made. I took a deep breath, trying not to lose it. "Mom, I've helped her before, multiple times. And what does she do? Blow it all on designer bags, fancy vacations, and God knows what else. She doesn't take responsibility for anything because you and Dad have always bailed her out. I'm not doing it this time." But apparently, that logic didn't register. "Savannah's struggling, Theo," she shot back. "She's not like you. She's not strong enough to handle this." "Struggling?" I repeated. "She's reckless. She spends money she doesn't have, and now she's in deep with some shady people. And instead of dealing with it herself, she's expecting me to swoop in and clean up her mess again." "She's your sister," Mom snapped. "Family looks out for each other." "No, Mom," I said, my voice firm. "Family doesn't take advantage of each other. This isn't me turning my back on Savannah. This is me refusing to enable her bad decisions. She needs to grow up and face the consequences for once." Mom wasn't having it. "Do you want her to get hurt, Theo? Do you want that on your conscience? Look, I'm not heartless. I don't want anything bad to happen to Savannah, but let's be real here. She's an adult, a 27-year-old adult who knew what she was getting into when she borrowed that money." I told my mom exactly that, but she wasn't having it. "She's not as strong as you, Theo," she snapped. "You've always had it together and she hasn't. You can afford to help her. It's the least you can do after all we've done for you." I said, "Done for me? Like what? Making me pay rent the minute I turned 18? Refusing to help with my college tuition?" "Yeah, thanks for all that support, Mom." She went silent for a second, but then she came back swinging. "If you don't help, we'll have no choice but to cut you off." "Do you want that?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Cut me off from what? You don't support me. I've been on my own for over a decade. Your threats don't work on me." And with that, I hung up. After that day, they were all silent, and I wish I could tell you that was the end of it, but it was just the beginning. The silence didn't last long. I guess I underestimated just how determined my mom could be when she wanted something. After I shut her and my dad down, they shifted gears. If the direct approach wasn't going to work, they were going to guilt me into submission. And when I say they went all out, I mean all out. It started with the texts. Simple at first. Messages like, "I just don't understand how you can let this happen to your sister." Then, as the days went by, they got more dramatic. "Do you know the kind of people Savannah is dealing with? They're dangerous, Theo. I can't sleep at night worrying about her." I ignored them at first because honestly, I didn't have the energy to deal with the manipulation, but they didn't stop. Instead, Mom stepped it up with the voice messages. And let me tell you, she's got this talent for sounding like she's holding back tears, even when she's not. "Theo," she said in one, "Savannah might not make it out of this if you don't help. I don't think I can live with myself if something happens to her." It was like a master class in guilt tripping. If they gave out awards for this kind of thing, she'd be a 3-time champion by now. Then my dad, Marshall, decided to jump in. He's usually more of a silent player in these family dramas, but not this time. He left me a voicemail that started out calm enough. "Hey Theo, just calling to check in." But then, of course, it shifted. "Look, I know your mom can come on a bit strong, but this is serious. Savannah's in deep, and we can't fix this without you. You've always been the strong one, the dependable one. Don't let us down now." That line, the dependable one, man, it set me off. I've spent my whole life being the dependable one, and all it's ever gotten me is more responsibility and less appreciation. Dependable doesn't mean I'm a doormat, though apparently they missed the memo. But the guilt avalanche didn't stop there. They decided to bring in reinforcements, the extended family out of God knows where. I started hearing from my Uncle Greg, who I hadn't spoken to in years. He called me out of nowhere, acting like we were best friends. "Hey Theo, long time no talk, how's life?" I knew immediately why he was calling, but I let him ramble for a bit before he got to the point. "You know, family's important," he said in that overly earnest tone people use when they're about to say something they know you won't like. "And Savannah's she's struggling. We all go through rough patches, and sometimes we need a little help." "Greg, listen," I interrupted. "Did my mom put you up to this?" He laughed nervously like I'd caught him. "Well, she might have mentioned it." I didn't even let him finish. "Look, I appreciate you reaching out, but not paying Savannah's debt, it's not my responsibility." You'd think that would have been the end of it, but nope. The next day was my Aunt Deborah, then my cousin Emily. They all had the same script: Savannah's in trouble, she needs help, and I'm the only one who can save her. I don't understand why all of them are that concerned about Savannah. It's not like she's some helpless kid who made an honest mistake. She's a grown adult who spends money like it's Monopoly cash and then acts shocked when the bill comes due. What made it worse was that none of them even tried to understand my side. When I explained that I wasn't willing to throw away $43,500 for someone else's mistakes, they acted like I was speaking another language. "But she's your sister," they'd say, like that was supposed to magically change my mind. The worst part, though, was the smear campaign. My mom, in her infinite wisdom, decided that if guilt-tripping me directly wasn't working, she'd try to turn the rest of the family against me. She started telling everyone on the family group chat, which I had left long ago, that I was self-absorbed, ungrateful, and a total piece of trash. According to her, I had forgotten where I came from and was too wrapped up in my fancy city life to care about my family. I found out about this when my cousin Ryan called me. He's one of the few family members I actually get along with, and he gave me the heads up. "Dude," he said, "Lorraine's been talking mad crap about you. She told Aunt Deborah that you said Savannah deserves whatever happens to her." I was furious. Not because I care what Deborah thinks, but because my mom was straight up lying about me to make herself look like the victim. I told Ryan the truth, that I never said anything like that, and he believed me. "Yeah, I figured she was exaggerating," he said. "It's just messy, man." Messy didn't even begin to cover it. But the real drama hit when Savannah decided to jump into the chaos herself. Up until then, she'd been quiet, not a single text or call. I thought maybe she was embarrassed for once. Turns out, she was just waiting to strike, and when she did, it wasn't subtle. She texted me one night, and it wasn't a plea, it was an accusation. "I can't believe how selfish you're being, Theo. You know I'm in serious trouble, and you're just sitting there doing nothing. You're supposed to be my brother." Selfish? That was laughable coming from her. Savannah's entire life had been one big string of bad decisions, always with someone else cleaning up her mess. I didn't respond. Honestly, I didn't think it deserved one. The next morning, she upped the ante. "You have the money. Stop acting like it's such a big deal. Just pay it off, and I'll pay you back when I can." Like that was somehow a reasonable solution. Like I was the unreasonable one for not handing over $43,500 to fix her screw-up again. I didn't bother to respond. That, of course, didn't go over well. She went full meltdown mode, sending me these long, rambling texts about how I was abandoning her and how I'd never understand what it's like to struggle. And then, just to twist the knife, she threw in, "Mom and Dad always said you'd come around eventually." Guess they were wrong. That line hit different, not because it made me rethink anything, but because it confirmed what I'd always known. This wasn't just Savannah being reckless. My parents had been hyping her up, making her think I'd always be there to fix her mess. By that point, I was over it. I stopped replying to texts, ignored the calls, and just focused on my own life. Just when I thought they couldn't sink any lower, the guilt trips, the ambushes, the smear campaigns, I realized I'd underestimated just how far they were willing to go. My parents and Savannah had played every card in their deck, or so I thought. Turns out, there was one last card hidden up their sleeve, and this one shattered any line I thought they wouldn't cross. I got a call from my bank, and just like that, everything turned into complete chaos. The bank's fraud department informed me about suspicious activity on my account. Apparently, someone had attempted to access it using forged documentation that didn't match their records. They had tried to change my contact details and withdraw funds, but the system flagged the attempt as suspicious and froze it. While the bank couldn't disclose specific details, they hinted that the documentation suggested it was someone close to me. Someone close to me. I didn't need to ask about it, I already knew Savannah. Who else could it be? The timing was way too convenient. She had just texted me about how desperate she was, and when I didn't cave, this happened. I was boiling inside. Forging documents to access my account? That's not just desperate, that's criminal. I couldn't let this slide. That evening I drove straight to Savannah's apartment, my anger barely contained, without a call of course, because I was done playing nice. She opened the door. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. "You tried to steal from me," I said, cutting straight to the point. Her expression shifted for a split second before she folded her arms. "I don't know what you're talking about. The audacity, though." I told her, "Don't even try that, Savannah. The bank flagged your little stunt. They told me someone forged documents to access my account. Do you even realize how serious that is?" She let out an exaggerated sigh, as if I was being overly dramatic. "Oh, relax, Theo. It's not like I actually got anything." I blinked, stunned at how casually she brushed it off. "Relax? Are you seriously trying to defend this by saying you failed? You tried to commit fraud, Savannah. That's a crime." She shrugged, completely unbothered. "What else was I supposed to do? You left me no choice. You refused to help me when I needed it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing." "No choice, Savannah? You had every choice. You could have owned up to your mistakes, taken responsibility, and figured out how to fix this yourself. But instead, you thought stealing from me was the solution." She scowled. "Don't act all high and mighty. Mom and Dad said you'd never let me struggle. They told me you'd come around eventually if I pushed hard enough. I just had to wait for you to get over your little tantrum." I stood there, stunned. Little tantrum? That wasn't frustration boiling in my chest, it was rage. This wasn't just her being reckless. This was years of my parents coddling her, feeding her delusions, and treating me like I existed solely to clean up her messes. "Unbelievable," I muttered, more to myself than to her. "Do you even understand what you've done, Savannah? You crossed a line, a big one." She rolled her eyes, doubling down instead of backing off. "I'm not the villain here, Theo. You are. You've turned your back on family. If you just helped me in the first place, none of this would have happened." That was it, the final straw. I took a deep breath, not because I wanted to stay calm, but because I needed to make sure I didn't say something I'd regret later. "I'm done," I said, turning toward the door. But before I left, I looked back at her one last time. "If you ever try something like this again, I won't just cut you off. I'll make sure the cops know exactly what you did. Grow up, Savannah. You're not a child anymore." I didn't wait for her response. I headed back to my car, my mind racing. How did it get this bad? How had my family gotten so toxic that my own sister thought it was okay to steal from me and blame me for it? I knew this was it. There was no coming back from this. I had to cut ties for good, but I knew it wasn't going to be that simple. My parents weren't going to let this go. Savannah wasn't going to let this go. And if they thought I was just going to roll over and take it, they were dead wrong, and I was right. The next day, my mom called. I didn't pick up, but she left a voicemail. "Theo, your sister told me what happened. She said, I can't believe you threatened her like that. She's struggling, and instead of helping her, you're making things worse. You should be ashamed of yourself." I played the message 3 times just to make sure I heard her right. Savannah tried to steal from me, and somehow I was the bad guy. It was so ridiculous I didn't respond. What was the point? They weren't going to see reason. But that didn't mean I was just going to let it slide. I called my bank and asked them to tighten the security on my account. Password changes, 2-factor authentication, the works. I wasn't about to give Savannah or anyone else another chance to mess with my finances. For a few days, things were quiet, too quiet. But if there's one thing I've learned about my parents, it's that they don't take no for an answer. At least not the first 100 times you say it. Don't tell me in the comments that I could just say no, because they do not understand it. So, when I came home from work a few days later and found their car parked in my driveway, I wasn't exactly shocked. Annoyed? Sure. Shocked? Not at all. I took a deep breath, parked behind them, and sat in my car for a minute, mentally preparing myself. I knew they weren't here for a friendly chat. They weren't here to apologize or try to make amends. No, this was going to be another round of guilt, manipulation, and emotional blackmail. And honestly, I was already exhausted just thinking about it. When I finally stepped out of my car, my mom was standing by the front door, looking like she was about to deliver some kind of lecture. My dad was staring at the ground, like he'd rather be anywhere else. "We need to talk," my mom said the moment I got close enough. "I don't think we do, Mom." I think everything that needs to be said has already been said. She ignored me, of course. This nonsense has gone on long enough. We're your parents. Savannah is your sister. This isn't how families behave. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, fully expecting her to follow me in. And of course, she did, with Dad trailing behind her like a lost puppy. You're just going to walk away while we're talking to you? Mom snapped. No, I'm going inside my house so I don't have to stand outside listening to more of your nonsense, I replied. If you're going to lecture me, you might as well do it where I'm comfortable. She didn't appreciate my tone, but honestly, I didn't care. She'd already crossed every boundary I'd tried to set, so why bother pretending I was okay with this? My mom wasted no time jumping into her usual spiel. Theo, you need to stop this stubbornness. Savannah is struggling, and it's your responsibility as her brother to help her. She's family. Yeah, family. I totally get it, I said. So let me tell you something about family, Mom. Family doesn't lie, steal, and manipulate to get what they want. Family doesn't expect one person to sacrifice everything, while someone else coasts through life without consequences. So don't come in here lecturing me about family. My dad finally spoke up. This isn't about taking sides, Theo. It's about fixing things. You're the only one who can do that. I laughed bitterly. Fix things? You mean like paying off Savannah's debt, covering for her fraud attempt, letting her get away with everything like she always does? Yeah, no thanks. I'm done fixing things for her. She's your sister, Mom said, her voice rising. Do you know what it would do to her if something happened? How would you live with yourself? And how do you live with yourselves? I shot back. You've spent her entire life enabling her, making excuses for her, and throwing me under the bus whenever it's convenient. You created this problem, not me. So, don't you dare try to make me feel guilty for not cleaning up your mess. Mom's face turned red. I thought she might actually explode. If you're not going to help, she said, then we'll have no choice but to cut ties with you. No holidays, no family gatherings, nothing. I stared at her, trying to decide if she really thought that was a threat. Mom, I've been on my own my whole life. You cutting me off is like firing someone who already quit. She opened her mouth to argue, but Dad cut her off. Lorraine, stop. This isn't helping. He turned to me, his expression softer. Theo, we just want what's best for everyone. Savannah's made mistakes, sure, but she's still family. Can't you just meet us halfway? I couldn't bear it anymore. Do you even hear yourselves? You're asking me to shell out $43,500 for someone else's mistakes. How is that halfway? What is Savannah contributing to this so-called compromise? I could feel the rage boiling in my chest, my thoughts racing faster than I could speak. Every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd stepped up when they wouldn't, every single instance of them putting Savannah first, it all slammed into me at once. I pushed off the counter, my movements deliberate, and walked to the door. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face calm. No yelling, no arguing, they didn't deserve that much energy from me anymore. I swung the door open wide and said, "Get out." My mom blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me? Get out, I repeated. This conversation is over. You're not going to guilt me into paying Savannah's debt, and you're not going to manipulate me into feeling bad about it. So, unless you have something productive to say, you can leave. Mom looked like she wanted to argue, but Dad gently took her arm. Come on, Lorraine, let's go. She glared at me as she walked past, her voice dripping with venom. You'll regret this, Theo. Mark my words. I shut the door behind them and stood there. It was quiet. Finally quiet. But the quiet didn't last long. The whole situation had been gnawing at me, and against my better judgment, I decided to find out what was going on with Savannah. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I just wanted to know how far things had spiraled. I reached out to a mutual friend who still kept in touch with her, hoping they'd fill in the blanks. What's going on with Savannah? I asked. I haven't heard anything since... Well, you know, the friend didn't hesitate. Oh, you haven't heard? It's bad. The people she owes money to aren't messing around. They trashed her car, completely destroyed it. Windows, tires, everything. She's freaking out, saying she doesn't feel safe. I should have felt something. Pity, concern, something. But all I felt was exhaustion. She'd gotten herself into this mess, and now she was reaping the consequences. Of course, I knew this would only mean one thing. More pressure from my parents to step in and save her. A few days passed and still no direct contact from Savannah or my parents, just silence. It felt strange, like the calm before a storm. And sure enough, the storm came. A letter from a lawyer. When I opened it, I couldn't believe what I was reading. My parents were threatening legal action, claiming I had a moral obligation to support my family. They wanted me to pay Savannah's debt, and they were actually willing to take me to court over it. I couldn't believe it. After everything they'd already done, they were willing to go this far. Part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all, but mostly I just felt numb. This wasn't a family anymore. It was a battleground, and I was done fighting. What baffled me was the sheer audacity of it all. It was almost impressive. Look how silly it sounds. My own parents threatening legal action because I wouldn't clean up Savannah's $43,500 mess. It was like they'd thrown out any remaining pretense of being a family and replaced it with outright hostility. I didn't need to think twice about what to do next. The first call I made was to my lawyer, who, thankfully, has a good sense of humor. When I explained the situation, he chuckled and said, "Theo, they don't have a leg to stand on. Let them file if they want, it'll get laughed out of court." Sure enough, nothing came of their threat, but it was a reminder of how toxic they were, and it only reinforced my decision to go no contact. That they were willing to go that far was enough for me. I realized I couldn't keep this door open anymore, not even a crack. I'd been holding out some tiny shred of hope that maybe, somehow, we could fix things. But this was the last straw. I blocked my parents' numbers that same day. No calls, no texts, no voicemails. I went through my social media and blocked them there too. While I was at it, I did the same for Savannah. If they were going to treat me like an enemy, then I'd treat them like strangers. I also had to tell the extended family what had happened. I knew my parents would spin the story to make me look like the villain, and I wasn't about to let them get away with it. So I called up my cousin Ryan, one of the few family members I actually trust, and laid everything out. "Dude," Ryan said after I finished explaining, "that's insane. They seriously tried to sue you?" "Not yet," I said, "but they're threatening to. I wanted to give you the heads up because I'm sure they're going to start spreading lies about me." "Don't worry," Ryan said. "I've got your back. And honestly, good for you for cutting them off. They sound toxic as hell." That conversation gave me the confidence to reach out to a few other relatives. Some were supportive, like Ryan, but others, not so much. My Aunt Deborah, for example, was firmly Team Lorraine. "Theo, they're your parents," she said, as if that somehow excused everything they'd done. "You can't just walk away from them." "Yes, I can," I said firmly, "and I have. They've crossed every line imaginable, and I'm not going to let them keep dragging me down." I knew Deborah thought I was some kind of disappointment. She said, "Family is family, Theo. You'll regret this someday." "Maybe," I said, even though I didn't believe it. "But for now, I'm choosing peace." And peace was exactly what I got. Only for a few days, though, because of course, about a week after I blocked them, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Theo," came my mom's voice, sharp and accusatory. "You blocked me." I sighed, already regretting my decision to pick up. "Yes, Mom, I blocked you. Why? Why would you do that?" she demanded, as if the answer wasn't glaringly obvious. "Because I'm done," I said. "I'm done with the manipulation, the guilt trips, the lies, the demands. I'm done with all of it," she scoffed. "You're being ridiculous. Do you really think you can just cut us out of your life like this?" "Yes," I said simply. "I can, and I have." She tried to argue, of course. She called me selfish, ungrateful, heartless, the usual, but I didn't take the bait. I just calmly repeated that I wasn't interested in continuing this conversation and hung up. Then I blocked the number. After that, I doubled down on the no-contact plan. I told Ryan to let me know if my parents or Savannah tried to reach me through him, but otherwise, I didn't want to hear anything about them. And for the most part, he respected that. Every now and then, though, he'd slip in an update. Months passed, and the longer I stayed no contact, the more I realized how much I'd been missing out on without the constant drama. I had so much more time and energy to focus on the things that actually mattered. Of course, there were still moments of doubt. Every now and then, I'd hear a voice in the back of my head saying, "What if they're right? What if you are being selfish?" But then I'd remind myself of everything they'd done, everything I'd endured, and the doubt would fade. Up until now, I didn't know what had happened to Savannah. Recently, I got another call from Ryan. "Hey, just thought you'd want to know. Savannah filed for bankruptcy." I paused for a moment, letting the news sink in. "Well," I said finally, "maybe now she'll learn to take responsibility for her actions." "Maybe," Ryan said, though we both knew it was unlikely. Savannah wasn't exactly the learn-from-your-mistakes type. As for my parents, they kept up their smear campaign for a while, but eventually it seemed to fizzle out. I guess even their most loyal supporters got tired of hearing the same story over and over again. By the time the holidays rolled around, I felt some kind of relief because I knew I wouldn't have to spend Christmas pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Instead, I spent the holidays with friends, my chosen family, and for the first time in years I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells. I could just be myself without the constant weight of my parents' expectations or Savannah's demands dragging me down. Cutting them off wasn't easy. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But looking back, I know it was the right one. Sometimes you have to walk away from toxic people, even if they're family. And while it's not always easy, it's worth it. I still get the occasional update from Ryan. though I've made it clear I don't want to hear much. Last I heard, my parents were still trying to rebuild their reputation, and Savannah was struggling to find her footing after the bankruptcy. I wish I could say I felt bad for them, but I don't. They made their choices, and now they're living with the consequences. As for me, I refuse to be a fool dancing on the strings held by all of those big shots. I'm moving forward, and I've surrounded myself with people who actually care about me and respect my boundaries. I'm focusing on my career, my hobbies, and my happiness. And while I don't know what the future holds, I know one thing for sure: I'll never let anyone, family or not, drag me down again. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you've got toxic people in your life, I hope my story gives you the courage to stand up for yourself. You deserve better. We all do.